Hi, guys. I thought I'd give you a quick update. If you like, please come up, but you can be sort of like the sideshow while I give a little update. No, welcome, guys. You know, Mike mentioned a couple of different activities we started, like with Mercedes in Stuttgart. And quite frankly, in Stuttgart, it's also open innovation. And it took me about 6 months to convince Mercedes that I'm going to invite BMW and Volkswagen. Initially, they thought I'm joking. But actually, last week, we had an event there, and one of the panelists was Porsche, one of the panelists was from Bosch, and one of the panelists was from Deutsche Bahn. So we really believe in, even though Mercedes could be sort of main partner in Stuttgart, because they have like 75,000 employees in that city, but we feel more effect comes out if the startup has a choice to work with 10 car companies. And you know, this mobility or autonomous car or electric car, I think it's the real thing this time. You know, when you hear Mark Field talk about the future of Ford, I don't know if you guys have heard about it or not, but he changed the name of Ford company. Instead of being Ford Car Company, it's now called Ford Mobility. And he said, you know, they were going toward autonomous car incrementally, like assisted car, etc. But now he has a new track with a couple of $1 billion committed to go straight to autonomous car. You know, he expects that you should not have a driving wheel or pedals by year 2021, which is incredible. I think it's going to change all our lives if you just get into your car and you say, take me home, while you know you listen to music or have a conversation with someone. So this Stuttgart project was incredible. The one in Paris with Galerie Lafayette, you know, I love Paris. I don't know how many people here likes Paris. Yeah. I think location matters, by the way. Try to get 22 startups to Stuttgart, it's pretty hard. Try to get 30 startups to Paris, everybody wants to come. Suddenly 200 startups show up. But the Paris one is very exciting because we had actually the CEO and the board of Galerie Lafayette here. You know, how many of you have been to the Galerie Lafayette main store in Paris? Great. It's a $2 billion a year revenue. But the interesting thing about it is every fashion company, every brand has one of their key showrooms in Galerie Lafayette, Paris. I think the only thing that's second to that is Harrods in London. And we feel this relationship that Galerie Lafayette has with all of these brands will explode the innovation in retail and fashion. And then I just saw the material and packaging sort of startups. And I wanted to say we have been approached by a couple of large organizations. One of them is like Aramco, the largest company in the world, as well as a couple of actually clothing stores, that we should do sort of an accelerator with impact, environmental impact and social impact. And we feel if we do that, we also want the startup to make profit. We call it double bottom line. but quite seriously, we are considering to open first quarter next year, environmental and social impact innovation platform. And again, I would love from the corporates in the room to, if you could send me a note to see who does sustainability at your firm. And if there is such a vertical, we also had the World Economic Forum members here. They were quite excited about it. So I love to get a feedback from everybody that if we do open a track for environmental impact and social impact, if you guys would be interested or not. But to come to the main part of the discussion, before we have the startups from brand and retail. Hello. I think we are sort of going everywhere together. We were in Las Vegas like 2 days ago.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to party it out with me.
You know, I don't know about you guys. It was a 10,000 people event, Money 2020, and I went to bed at 8:30. My wife didn't even believe it. You know, he just said, Saeed, you're getting too old. You know?
There you go.
But it was a great event. What I thought is if you could introduce yourself and a little bit, he was a great keynote in Las Vegas talking about how Kohl's innovates in the pay area, in the customer relationship area. Love to, if you can introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your activity or your accomplishments this year. Focus on the customer.
Sure. So my name is Ratnakar Labu. I'm both the CTO and CIO for Kohl's department stores. So as you all know, department stores are in the midst of major transformation, not only just because of Amazon, just because of what we are seeing within the ecosystem in the US. And so as part of the transformation, we are actually looking at every aspect of the retail environment, whether it's supply chain, whether it's payments, whether it's customer experience, whether it is digital, you know, whether it's a store environment itself. And so when we think about the transformation elements of it, we think about transformation even within the core of the company. And so, for example, this year, we actually brought in a lot of mobility into the hands of the store's associates, wherein, because we do ship from store and buy online, pick up in store, so we deployed mobile devices so that they can pick, pack, and ship at scale. And by the way, yes, from an application standpoint, it is about picking and packing and shipping, but then we also introduced within that some smarts and intelligence in what is the best route that they have to go within the store to pick that merchandise. The other piece that Saeed is talking about is payments. So I fundamentally think that payments, as the way the ecosystem is solving payment, is both good and it's also flawed. Because most of the companies that are solving payments are really only solving it purely from a payment standpoint, meaning your credit card in a particular wallet, and then how do you pay using mobile. But then when you think about a retailer like us, it's not only just about payments, it's about loyalty cards, it's about coupons, it's about Kohl's Cash, it's about reward certificate, it's about gift card. So how do you bring all of that together and make it very easy for a customer to either scan or tap to pay? And so when I look at the ecosystem, whether it's the device manufacturers, Samsung, Apple, or the operating system providers like Android, nobody's actually thinking about that, and hence we launched something like Kohl's Pay about 3 weeks ago, and we're seeing tremendous amount of traction. So those are some of the examples that we're focused on.
And it's incredible, again, retail is getting challenging. This pick up, pack, and ship. I don't know if you guys know, Tesco in London had certain packers that would go to a store and pick up and pack and ship. And it was so popular, now they have what they call like dark stores, that it actually looks like a real store, but there is no retail clients. It's just packers go in it because they know where everything is, so they can quickly pack a basket and ship it. And if I'm not mistaken, it was a couple of billion-dollar business for Tesco in London and surrounding city.
Yeah, and we actually see the same thing because we're not going to be in a position to build out warehouses like an Amazon is, but we actually do have a footprint of 1,160 stores. So how do you convert those into true fulfillment centers as well as customer experience centers for our customers?
Great, thank you. Alan, you have one of the coolest outfit, high fashion, high comfort. Tell us what is new at Lululemon.
Besides our focus on men's.
Exactly.
Very comfortable stuff for you guys. I'm sure your wives know about it, but get in there and look at some of our men's stuff. Alan Smith, CIO of Lululemon Athletica. We're based out of Vancouver. I'm honored to be with such esteemed retailers. We're quite small revenue-wise compared to you all, but we have a very unique brand. We specialize in athletic apparel, but those of you who've ever shopped with Lululemon, you know that our store experience is really key to what we do, and we call customers guests and educators or associates, and it's it's really a unique way of bringing a perspective on athletic mindfulness approaches to just living a full life to our guests. So with respect to technology, taking that theme forward, we're very maniacal about having a consistent premium experience in the store. So one of the things that we decided was to make an investment in really improving our inventory management, because we have times, especially during our peak holiday season, incredible traffic in the store and online, and it's not uncommon for us to stock out on some very key items, as you probably know. So we made an investment in item level RFID. So our thinking is that in order to bring that full experience to the guests, we really need to know where all our product is all the time in the stores, in our fulfillment centers. So that was rolled out last year, but it really created the foundation for innovation around that guest experience. We talk about ship from store and pick up in store. We really believe that the ability to provide that product is essential, and having the normal variance in what the systems say and what's actually in the store would end up disappointing our guests. So the investment in RFID really tied that variance down to a very small number. And actually, we've been able to tie that real-time view into our inventory in the store through our
and you're
shop
fully
app and other.
implemented? I mean, you kind of know what is happening
No,
in your Palo Alto store right now?
Fully rolled out. Every product you buy has a tag with an RFID chip. So we can see from headquarters or anywhere what's actually in the store. We ship real-time information up to our databases, and you can get on your application, your shop app, we call it's our mobile application, and there's an inventory lookup, and that ties directly into the store's RFID database. And so building that ecosystem around that inventory view was really essential, and the next two pieces of that are to tie our customer database, and then how we process what we call we don't like to use the term omni-channel. We're channel agnostic, so you should be able to shop with Lululemon anywhere, any way you want to do it without any notice that there's any difference in our experience. It should be consistent across the board, wherever you are in the world, however you want to shop with us.
So maybe this is secret, but are you going to use the RFID tags after the purchase in any way?
That's the innovation part.
The secret part. He's not going to share it with us. No, but I really think you guys are quite innovative, and that's a big step. Something to just talk about. We have some international people. I mean, it's not, I don't think, confidential. Galeries Lafayette does less than 5% e-commerce. in US, majority of the retailers do around 20 to 25%. And reality is there is no more online, offline separation. You have to have a seamless experience. And with that in mind, Chris, can you tell us a little bit what you guys are doing in search of technology to service your clients as well as investments?
Sure. So I think for Lowe's, one of the key things that we're trying to figure out is...
Can everybody hear him?
Yep. Is that
No.
good?
Yeah.
No? Is that better?
Yeah.
No?
No,
Sorry.
they can't hear you.
Okay. So one of the things that we're doing at Lowe's is really, as an organization in which the store was the epicenter of the world for the longest period of time, we're trying to figure out what role it plays in sort of the next decade or two. And so from a Lowe's Ventures perspective, the two things we're really exploring that change our business are, what are the ways in which commerce is going to be conducted? And we see much more peer-to-peer. We see a future of machine-to-machine commerce coming on. Obviously, the shift to online and mobile has been a massive transition for us. We're trying to figure out how do we take people who are starting their journey almost exclusively online and transition them either to come into the store for the advice or the fulfillment, or even long-term, if they don't come into the store, how do we turn those stores, I guess, similarly, into distribution and fulfillment centers for people who are starting their journey online. The second thing for us as a home-focused company is we believe there is a very big change in the relationship between people in their homes that's undertaken, a lot of which was facilitated during the downturn of the housing cycle. And we believe like the covenant between people and home, at least for a generation, was moderately disrupted or maybe even broken. And there used to be this idea that the home was this store of wealth and it was safe and it always went up. And as such, if you could afford to own, you did, right? And what happened during that downturn was after you broke that idea that it's always a safe store of wealth, all of these other macro factors like urbanization, the 1099 economy, et cetera, came into play, and people are now starting to think about housing in a very different way as more of a consumable that gets them into a city or into a school district. And so the other part that we're looking at is what role do we play in an economy where people are more renters and therefore they're not actually in control of home improvement spend, and how do we rethink the platform to service those who do the home improvement projects, either whether that's property managers, or the other big change for us is lots and lots of people don't know how to maintain a home anymore. And so this outsourcing economy to a more service providers, we have to think about how do we integrate into that supply chain. And everything that we've ever done during our scale period was focused on, import, put it into a coastal holding facility, split it out to a regional distribution center that ships full truckloads to a store, because on the weekend everyone jumps in their car and drives down to wherever the 4 or 5 places they need to go. And so rethinking how the store plays in that. And I think from a mind shift internally where that's very difficult is the store was always the center. It was the most important thing. And we're having to re-examine a world in which it's one of the more important things, but it's not the center of the universe.
Do you have any services, it comes to mind, like Instacart, or we have a company called Your Mechanic, that they actually come to your house and do your car service? They say 80-90% of the services can happen at your home or your office with the mechanic coming to you. And Your Mechanic is quite successful that even Mercedes is white labeling Your Mechanic. That means if you call a Mercedes dealer, say, I want to have a service done at my house, rather than coming to a dealer. Have you ever tried to combine, like if I do want my lights changed to, what is that saving light company? no
Like
more.
Philips Hue or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that, sure.
That somebody will go pick it up, bring it, install it, almost like Instacart or your mechanic. Have you seen that develop?
Yeah, so we have a $5 billion service arm, and most of those services are installation or remodel. But what we did was we invested in a company called Porch.com, similar to a Home Advisor, Angie's List, et cetera, which allows us to help the customer find a service provider for whatever it is they need. I think as we see the world shifting more towards a do-it-for-me world, we're trying to understand what's the right blend between services that we own, that we brand Lowe's, that we have employees who go out there stand behind, versus services where maybe we subcontract or refer. There's this real blend of how the labor is dispersed in there. I don't think we'll ever have brick masons at Lowe's, but our customers, if they need it, we need to be able to help them out. So we're trying to figure out what the right level of I guess, labor relationship is to provide any level of home service to people.
Wonderful. Alan, you mentioned to me one of the challenges you guys are facing is international or opportunity as well as challenge. Is there any lessons learned from other US brands going overseas? Are you considering China first or Europe? If you could tell us a little bit about your international goals and objectives.
Sure.
I know they're going to be RFID tags, so you know exactly where the inventory is.
Yeah. International is a big strategy for us. We're a premium brand, and within the North America market, there's a finite number of locations where you could set up a Lululemon the way we express the brand. But international, we're very excited about moving our brand there. But one of the challenges is being able to translate what is unique about Lululemon into the different cultural makeups of Asia and Europe. Those of you who've shopped with us know we have a certain language we use. Our bags have sayings on them that don't necessarily translate directly to Chinese. So something as simple as our manifesto, which is kind of our brand presence, mission, is difficult to translate. But one of the things that is unique about Lululemon is that we don't do traditional marketing, so you'll never see a TV ad. We don't sign up athletes to big contracts like some of our competitors do. We are a community-based extension when we bring our brand to market. So, for example, one of the things that we're trying to leverage on top of that is being able to create communities through events in some of these countries. And one of the things that we just did in August was a giant yoga class, basically, in the Forbidden Palace, which was the first time since the last Emperor was filmed that they had that many people in the plaza of the Forbidden Palace. So we had 5,000 people doing yoga in China. And that's the way that we bring our brand to market. So translating that again to Europe and how those cultures see us is really a challenge. But we believe mindfulness in our product and elevating people's lives is really the common thread.
Were they wearing Lululemon clothes as 5,000?
Some were.
Great. We never have talked about your international goals. Do you guys think you will expand internationally?
Yeah, actually, we looked at kind of the international expansion into Canada, into China. The issue I think that we face is there's so much opportunity within the US itself that we don't want to lose our focus right now, which is predominantly look at the opportunity, fix some of the issues that department store retailers like us need to fix, and then we can think about international at some point. So.
Wonderful. Let me change the topic a little bit. The company that came to ask us about the social impact actually is one of the European competitors, CNA. And they said that they buy so much cotton, and the way the cotton is grown, the way the cotton is produced and then sewed, they really want to use their purchasing power, which is north of $5 billion, to talk to all their supply chain to be more environmentally conscious, treat the workers the best possible by educating them that they could even sell at a premium if they have a better work environment for the workers. Just maybe you said don't know politics, but do you guys look at those stuff, and is it important to your brand? Is it important to your culture?
Yeah, so from a brand standpoint, it's definitely very important. So we are very focused on the environment itself. So if you look at most of the Kohl's stores, they're highly energy efficient stores. So we run them that way. We're one of the few retailers at that scale who actually has a lot of energy efficient stores. Then the other thing is we definitely look at the supply chain itself. We don't necessarily focus on the material, but we do focus on the partnerships and making sure that the workforce is well treated within the supply chain. But there is opportunity to look at the materials and the sourcing and how it comes into the ecosystem and what are the attributes that we want to associate when we talk about environment and other things.
You know, like we had a company that was sold called Sigma Quest, and it had sensors on actually like an Apple iPhone that you could kind of know which components were used, how they were tested, which shift it was produced, and even the shift manager, you could go to that low to check the quality of the iPhones before it was shipped. You know, I have heard a lot of talk about supply chain, helping the workers have a better environment. But I think with this Internet of Things and with these cameras and with your RFID tags, you could really follow the product all the way through. And again, if we do something in this environmental impact or social impact, we want to do something different, something better than what it is being done now. What is your thought, Alan, about that?
Yeah, I think it's right on. You know, in our world, because we're vertical, it's less complex to do an RFID implementation, and in our factories are highly technical. So we don't have the same type of challenges in managing large numbers of factories. But as we deal with our own factories who build this very technical product, we're instilling this sense of community, sustainability, environment into everything they do. And as we start bringing our product to market, I mean that's really one of the core tenets of who we are, is the environment and taking care of the mind as an ecosystem.
Chris, do you have any thoughts in this respect? You guys move a lot of product.
Yeah, we do. I think for us, when we think about environmental impact, it's often post-purchase. So if you think about a construction project, a lot of things get ripped out of the home and disposed of, and they're a lot of times very usable components. They could be cabinets, they could be appliances, etc. And sometimes it's a new homeowner comes in, the cabinets were replaced a year and a half ago. But
my wife.
But that's not my taste, right?
She keeps telling me she loves her kitchen cabinets, but I don't think it was necessary to change them.
So for us, I think we're trying to look at it in two ways. What are items that perhaps from a reverse logistics perspective we could take back, like an appliance, and either break down the components and make something out of the recycling of it, or maybe refurbish and think about bringing it to an outlet. I know we're very brand conscious, so we're concerned a little bit about the idea of an outlet. But on the other side is, how do we think about facilitating peer-to-peer exchange? So there might be someone in another part of the universe, not too far away, who's looking to do a kitchen remodel, in which those cabinets, maybe they're less sensitive to the cabinets because they want to upgrade the appliances or the countertops or something. And the ability to actually say, well, this was going into a landfill. If you come get it or pay moderate shipping, literally you can get. So we're really trying to think through the idea of how do peers exchange materials afterwards in kind of a reuse environment.
I think that's a great idea. Maybe one of our entrepreneurs can start a startup in that peer-to-peer exchange, because I think it can be really effective with expensive $1,000 items.
Yeah.
But we saw a couple of startups this morning in new materials, new sort of slippery paint or corrosion proof. I was wondering if you had to project in your industry something that would be unique in 3 years to 5 years. Is there any ideas that you would like the entrepreneurs to go after? I mean, I know you guys have a great technical team. You, I think, implement a lot of pilots. One of the best, by the way, corporates that we deal with, because they have set up internally their systems that they can do rapid pilots, decide if they want to roll it on or roll it off. Maybe you can even talk about that. But if you had sort of like something in the future that you guys would want, even if you come up with that idea, we would really love it.
Yeah, so a couple of things. We look at connected clothing. I think the advent of connected clothing to either, I think there was a presentation about understanding something about your body and then kind of reacting to that is something that we're very interested in. We test out, we are doing innovation within our own ecosystem, like working with Fila and others. But I do think that is going to take off within the next couple of years. And that's where I think there's a lot of opportunity for innovation. The biggest issue with connected clothing today is it's clunky, it's bulky, there's a lot of wires and other things. So when you talk to companies like Flextronics and others, and as we think about them, we're saying, okay, how do you make it so seamless that you don't even feel that there's something attached to the clothing product? There's a lot of opportunity there. And then with that, then you say, okay, how does someone like a retailer like us take advantage of that? Partly it's mobility, wherein, how do you provide better services within the app so that the customer can avail that connected clothing to get greater value, either to understand their body and the biometrics and things like that. Or it could be things like, interfacing with the enterprise itself. And we think about the enterprise being an open enterprise through APIs. So it's the API economy. So we are really opening up a lot of APIs within the enterprise so that we can do rapid prototyping and innovation, whether it's connected clothing, whether it's in-store experience, whether it's payments or other things.
That's great. Alan, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think those are a lot of the things that would be very interesting for us. I think if I had to look forward, mindfulness is really something that is key to how we think the world itself is going to evolve, not just from our brand perspective, but just in general. And so if there was technology capabilities that could really tap into an individual's view of mindfulness and how they kind of come to a place where they, have a balanced view of the world through either product, through knowing who they are, is really something that we think is a big unlock. And we have our own R&D labs, same kind of thing, but we're also looking for outside, our four walls to really bring in great ideas wherever we can. And this is one that we spend a lot of time thinking about to tie that with our product and the way our brand shows up in the world.
Anything in futuristic you guys are looking into? What about robots? I know a couple of our robot companies go around your aisles.
Yeah, so robotics is definitely an interesting area for us. I think the way that we've been thinking about robotics is one of the key I think everyone is kind of fighting Amazon in some way, right? And one of the key differentiators we see about keeping our stores relevant is in sort of human interaction. And I think when you juxtapose that with the idea that labor is one of the biggest cost centers, and therefore one of the levers that gets pulled every time you want to kind of, eke up a few extra points on your EBIT margin. And I think where people have, hit a lot of retailers over time is, I can never find the person isn't as knowledgeable as they used to be, et cetera. And so when we look at robotics, I think what we're really trying to do is take a step back and say, what are the non-customer facing tasks in which a robot or a computer is actually better able at performing that task? Not so that I can cut labor further, just so that I can redeploy my labor so that people aren't saying I can't find someone in the aisle, or so perhaps even to the point where I can raise wages to sort of re-attract the former tradesmen to be in my aisle, to have a more knowledgeable customer base. So I think when we think about robotics, certainly automation is very interesting in terms of getting operational efficiency, but I think we're looking at it in this sense of, if we have a finite labor pool and one of our key differentiators is the ability to have a human interact with another human, how do we make that happen more often than having people focus on the stock room or walking the aisles for other reasons?
I don't know if I remember right, but one of our startups, Fellow Robot, kind of showed me initially the customer will ask Fellow Robot, where is something, and the robot would say, follow me. I thought it was a pretty interesting idea. But then recently I got an update from them that they actually do the inventory of the store, and they find out where you need to refurbish inventory at night. Is that true? Are you guys using them for that application?
Yeah, so we've actually used a couple of partners in that application, and I think the Fellow test, when we first started, was more around the first concept, which was, can we use a robotic personal assistant to interact with people who speak multiple languages, allow visual recognition to be able to identify the part, program them with a wayfinding solution, and take them places, both informationally as well as guide them throughout the store. And while that was great, when you take a step back and you start thinking about how to get return on investment, the biggest return on investment is, when you're running down the aisles, you might as well be, taking pictures and notifying me of what my stock levels are. So the second generation has incorporated sensors and cameras in there that can, in kind of real time, take pictures, stitch them together, and then bounce them up against our databases to either ask for replenishment from a DC, or to notify someone that they need to go back in the stock room because you can't sell something that's not on the shelf.
Sounds great. I think it would not be complete panel if we don't talk about drones and VR. Maybe artificial intelligence, VR, and drones. Are you guys looking at any futuristic? I had a Singaporean startup that claimed they could put actually clothing back on the shelves with drones flying around after hours. From your laughing, I guess you don't think so. But what about artificial intelligence or VR?
No, I was just chuckling because I think when you talk about big box retailers, you could do that. I could see a drone in our store crashing into every fixture that we've got because we're a usually about 3,000 square feet is the max that our stores are. But you know, we are interested in those kind of things, particularly you know, when we get into our peak period, because you know, a lot of online sales, they start to taper down, you know, on the 21st, 22nd, and if we had a way in some of our key markets to be able to have you know, same day, but not depend on, you know, a service exclusively to do that. We're looking at ways to potentially innovate there, but you know, the whole machine learning and space around data is a huge unlock when you can tie that into that seamless experience that we were talking about earlier. That is one of our core underpinnings to really understand our guests, our inventory, fulfillment decisions that we make. You really can't do that in the future without a really high-performance data engine.
And you know, I haven't been to the Zara headquarters, but a couple of my colleagues went, and they said it's like a space machine. They know per item where everything is being sold globally per store, and as soon as you know, shirt is sold, they have machine learning make a decision, should they deliver another shirt just like that to that store. Within 3 days, I think they can get it everywhere in the world. And that's pretty amazing technology to be used. What do you think about that? So much power of artificial intelligence, machine learning. Are you guys doing anything in that space?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of power in analyzing that data, especially for replenishment, very easy. So the big thing that we're focused on is when we think about the future, what problems are we really trying to solve? And everybody is enamored by, you know, robotics and kind of doing service. Actually, I don't think even human beings are ready for that, quite frankly. I think it's going to take some time. But I do think robotics in the back of the house, from a logistics, pick, pack, and ship, if somebody can solve that well, there's a huge opportunity for retailers like us, is if you can automate that whole process. Because the customer actually doesn't see that, and hence it's easier to even deploy if it works really well. So that's one component of that. When we come back to machine learning and other things, you know, again, a lot of people are trying to solve, you know, how about if we have a chatbot that interacts with a human being? There, if we don't get the experience right, I think the customer will leave us. So instead of that, I think there's a lot of machine learning still in the back of the office. So for example, even how do we run our infrastructure? There's a lot of science that can be put into that, in terms of, okay, how do you optimize it? How do you make it more efficient? How do you optimize, let's say, energy within the ecosystem? There are a lot of back of the office type of applications for machine learning and science and data that I'm still not seeing the startup ecosystem kind of be there as yet.
You know, addressing that. You know, like as you mentioned, Chris, everybody just says, oh, like if we can reduce labor or have labor at the peak time versus, you know, 8 hours a day, it would sort of, it goes straight to the bottom line if the sales team is more productive at the peak time. Do you do any tokens in your stores? Do you do any sort of where the customers' path to purchase, where they are walking?
Yeah, I mean, we analyze a lot of that data in terms of we can understand from heat maps where they're looking and what it is. So talking about the store itself, so one of the big problems that we see is, you know, online, you actually have a lot of visibility. What did they click? Did they come to the home page? Did they go to a product page? Did they check out? Now, we're constantly looking at solutions to digitize the store. And quite frankly, there aren't great solutions there. So we're starting to figure out how to cobble up between Wi-Fi, you know, other technologies, Bluetooth and other things, how to get that heat map to say, if you think about the home page for a store, it's like the entrance. And then where did they actually go? What did they do? And what was the conversion? And that's actually a pretty hard problem to solve.
And you're working on it.
We're working on it.
I think you have small stores, so you can just touch everything quickly.
Yeah,
I'm just
you know,
joking.
it's interesting. We have part of the same problem, but we just because the footprints are small, you know, the educators actually can see, you know, the traffic, but being able to pull their observations in a way that we can make conclusions on the data is something that'd be very interesting, because a lot of the things that they see day to day within their 3,000 square foot just doesn't get filtered up in a way that we can act on it quickly. So I don't think anybody's working on it from that angle. And it's more than just a portal where people can put comments. It's a lot more real time, and having that real time analytics on those observations would be amazing.
Wonderful. Chris?
Yeah, I think we actually have an investment thesis at Lowe's Ventures that we call store.com. And it's basically saying how store operators are so envious of .com, because they know the second that they hit the landing page, I know everything about you, demographics, you know, all these other things that I just pulled directly from your history, right? And then as you navigate the site, I can instantly provide you personalized content and offers. And I think when we really think about how technology comes into the store, that's what we want to get to. And I think today there's a lot of decent technological infrastructure that can be put in place to analyze what has happened. And I think where the real value comes is, how do you do that in real time to then instantly create personalization? So like, someone walks in my store, how do I know exactly who they are, how often they shop there, what they generally buy, maybe even a premonition of what they're there for, because they've been searching on Lowe's.com and I can infer they're in the middle of replanting something, and so I know they need to go to the garden aisle and what they need to do. I think that's kind of the next level, without being too creepy, because sometimes even .com is pretty creepy when you're like, I know you were looking at this, right? So we're trying to figure out, how do we take the stores and not only mine them for data, but make that data immediately actionable.
I think that's all about what information you can extract from the data, how fast you can do it, and how fast you can react to the knowledge you have recovered. I think that's the billion-dollar question. Let me run a little startup we invested in Paris by you. You know, like, I don't know about you guys, but when my wife and my daughter want to go to a party, suddenly 5 dresses show up. And they know they're going to only buy one, I hope. But the 4 goes back, supposedly. So there is... Got a little late reaction on the joke. But it's not a joke. It's a painful process for me. No. But this company in Paris, especially in the metropolitan area, says you should click, 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 click. You get 10 items from Galeries Lafayette, 10 different brands, approximately your size. As soon as the store is closed, a guy comes, picks up this 10 clothes, takes it to your apartment, and picks it up at 7 o'clock in the morning, the 9 you didn't buy. Do you think this, like, doctors coming home, it's coming back in a big way? Do you think that extra personal service is going to come back for clothing?
I think there's some model there. The problem, I think, is economics, to make all of that work and at scale. So when we looked at it, could we do it? Absolutely we can, right? Then you say, okay, you have to have the cost to get it to the customer.
And pick it up.
And then bring it back. And if they only keep one item and your average order value is relatively low for like us, is it even economically feasible? That's number one. Number two is, can you do it in smaller categories? Yes. But then when you talk about 300,000 SKUs, can you do it at that level? And then if you don't do it at that level, will the customer be disappointed anyway? They might say, well, you do this service for one category, but not the other. So that's the thing that we struggle with some of these. They look very interesting in terms of the model to start off a proof of concept, but then when you start scaling it, we get into different sets of challenges. At least that's what we see.
Try before you buy.
Yeah, I think for us, again, if you look at our model, our ultimate goal is to get guests into the store to interact with us and experience us. I mean, I think we've talked about having some clienteling capabilities, but similarly, do the economics work? And then, are you really getting the guests in a position where they can really experience us? And we're really keenly pay a lot of attention to having that experience consistent.
Still everybody into the store. I think that's the
online.
The lesson learned, yeah.
I think when that situation right there is probably a great use case for the future of AR, VR. So as people more have access to VR technology, as they're easier to do, full 3D body scans, and they have better tactile, like the ability to really feel a tool or put on a dress and have the 3D representation be highly accurate to both body measurement as well as sort of the aesthetics of it all. I think that'll probably usurp the idea of the service model, just because, as you mentioned, I think it works in your scenario where you're buying a $10,000 dress and it's probably 90% margin, and so they can bring
I hope not, but
I think it works in those high value items, but I think the vast majority of retail, if it's going to be experienced or tested out, I think that's where some of the promise of VR is.
Wonderful. With that, I wanted to thank our panelists and emphasize that really these innovation platforms are yours as much as our corporate partners and the startups. And any suggestions you have, we would be very pleased to hear them out and implement them. Thank you so much, everybody.